My name's Robert Gordon, and I'm from Selma, Alabama. And we can call this the bicycle. This started, you know how you get on these health kicks? I get on these little health kicks periodically. They never last long. And one night I'd been riding my bicycle for weeks at night. And one night I grabbed it and go down the steps of the porch here. And I don't know what happened. I think the kickstand was down and I fell into one of these big giant potted plants. And I landed on my back and I went, uh-oh. And I knew blood shot up in the air, really 6 feet up in the air. And I knew that it was bad times. And I crawled up the porch, crawled up the steps, laid on the porch, big pool of blood there the next morning. Got back here, wrapped a blanket around me, went to the hospital. The truck was just a mess when I got there. I mean, it was a mess. Go in there and there's some foreign doctor from somewhere. And I'm bleeding all over the place and they took me right in. I got right in. And he washes it out with that red stuff, betadine. I think that's what it is. And he sews me up, and everything's good. You know, everything looks good, but it wasn't. And then a few days after that, I was getting sicker and sicker. The guy stitched it up with leaves, dirt, all kind of stuff in it, but I didn't know. Nobody knew. He didn't know, I'm sure. I know he didn't mean to do it, but I just continued to get sicker and sicker and sicker, and I would have to go out in the yard and flex my knee, and a bunch of nasty stuff would just shoot out of my knee. And I was going, well, I'm getting better. I guess I'm getting better. And I didn't know I was getting nuts, was what I was getting. I was getting nuts. And somebody would knock on the door, and I'd get up, and I would have to drag a mop behind me to mop up all the yuck. Which I was so crazy, I thought that was normal. And then after a few days of that, a week of that, my daddy came over here and said, son, we got to go to the hospital. And we went to the emergency room at a different hospital here in Selma. And I remember walking up to it, and I laid down in the grass outside the emergency room because they couldn't see me right then. And then they realized they had a real sick boy, and they got me in real quick. And they took all these x-rays, and the x-ray technician got them and said, boy, you are a mess. And he was showing the pictures to every nurse and doctor that walked by. And so they immediately scheduled me for an operation that day, and where they dug out all the pottery and dirt and leaves and whatever else was in there. And so I got okay for a little while, and then I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and went to I went to Montgomery. Now I still had health insurance then because I still had money and could pay it. So we go to Montgomery and another operation. And that's when, they're giving you morphine and stuff. And I'm so doped up on morphine, I had to have a cigarette after the operation. So you had this drainage thing coming out of your knee. And of course you had the little pole with the morphine dripping in you, in your arm. And so I got out of my bed and put the drainage, it's like a little bag, kind of. Put that in my mouth, and I go to the nurse's station, and it's like the coast was clear. So I shoot around there and jump on the elevator, and I go down, and there's like a roof over the parking deck, and you could smoke, and all these nurses were out there. I mean, big nurses, like big, scary looking nurses. So I ran over there, and I'd torn a piece of paper off out of this notebook before I made my escape, because they told me the doctors would have to give me permission to go smoke. So I had my excuse in that little gown they give you, I had to make sure my ass wasn't sticking out of it. I was real worried about that. And so I go over there and I'm smoking away, happy. I was so happy. I was doing morphine, smoking a cigarette. Life was like real good. And then one of the gorilla nurses looked at me and said, "Sir, what are you doing out here?" And I took that piece of paper out and I waved it and I said, "Oh, the doctor is giving me an excuse." And she huddled together with the other gorilla nurses. I mean, these were big, scary nurses. So I was through with my cigarette and I went, I better go now. I needed to get out of there. So I went up back to my room and got in the bed, and all of a sudden about 4 of them, big, gorilla, scary nurses, burst in there. And they were screaming at me that I had no doctor's excuse. And I threw the covers over my head, like a kid would do. And I just laid up under the covers while they were screaming at me, and they were screaming at me, and they told me they had a special place for people like me. The special room where they would like strap you down or something, and all I could do is lay up under those covers and shake, because I knew they would do it. I knew they were going to do it. But anyway, we managed to work it out, me and the nurses, and they finally figured out I was a good patient. It's only because I was scared as hell. Well, I neglected to say the doctor that did the second operation saw something up in my knee and didn't know what it was. And he had called a guy from Birmingham to check it out. And but he had done, the guy had done everything he could do. So I was at the hospital, and they discharged me, and I come back to Selma, and I go through, you have to go to Rehab, same place here in Selma. And the girls there, I'm at Rehab, I don't know, I'm sure everybody watching this might have done some, but the people here, I mean, it is very, very painful, very painful. And all the girls there, I would tell them that, if they quit doing rehab, they could get jobs out at the local county jail as brutal prison guards. I like all those old prison movies. And they all fit the bill, let me tell you. All of them. This won't hurt. Oh, no, hell no, it won't hurt. It won't hurt them. But you're sitting there dying. They're going, just bend. And I'm going, why don't you go and get a job as a brutal prison guard. So they put me through the mill too, but I couldn't help it. I just couldn't help doing that. So anyway, I get better and better. And now years have gone by now. And I'm in so much pain, it's very hard to work, so I lose my health insurance because I couldn't pay for it. But luckily, I had the VA, because I was in the Marine Corps a very long time ago. Long, long time. Seems like a dream now, really. So anyway, this thing is, it's a fungus in my knee, but I didn't know it, and the doctor from Montgomery had contacted me about it, and I was just getting sicker and sicker. This girl takes me to Montgomery and to a friend of hers. She's worked in the medical field, and this guy draws fluid out of my knee, and he basically told me to get the hell out of his office. No kidding. He wouldn't touch me. So I come back to Selma, and a few weeks later, I drove myself to the VA in Montgomery, Alabama. And there was an old doctor in there, old, had been there 50 years, 50 or 60 years. And I'm sitting there, and I hadn't shaved in a few days. I have sweat just pouring off me, I'm soaking wet. He comes in with his two little nurses, this boy and this girl, and they're standing behind him. And he's going, what seems to be the problem? And I was going, my knee is killing me, it's killing me. And the guy's sitting there looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and finally he goes, Mr. Gordon, how much have you had to drink this morning? And that blew me away, and I've never talked bad to a doctor, never in my life. I was raised better than that. Anyway, I threw up my fingers, and I just went, back, Satan, back! And the two nurses burst out laughing, and I was going, what in the hell is he talking about? What is he talking about? I am sick. And so the doctor goes, well, I can't treat you. And I went, good. And then a few minutes later, this old nurse comes in there with the two young ones, and she went, we know you're sick, and we're going to take care of you. And they sent me to Birmingham, like the next day. The next day I was in Birmingham.